Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we can't decide if it's called RPG Book Club or the RPG Book Club. Maybe we should ask the guy from Napster which one we should
do. Every single time that me or Eli introduce it, it's RPG Book Club. You have added the every single time by yourself.
Really? Every time I add every time I add the the, it's because I feel like I remember you doing it.
I feel like I've been the one adding the.
Maybe. But it's...
See? This is what I'm talking about. Anyway, in this podcast, we play a little bit of a video game, and we talk about how it makes us feel. That's why this week we're watching a movie and talking about how it makes us feel.
I mean, it's basically an uninteractive video game,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Anyway, I am
like
Maddie
Xenosaga. I am Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning in with us for some weird reason, we just finished playing the entirety of the video game Final Fantasy X. And to commemorate that, we had a movie night. But by that I mean we all individually watched the movie on our own time. And we decided to watch the film Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, which is a very, very, very actually outrageously important movie in the history of video games, regardless of its artistic and entertainment value. Yeah, we talked about it. So we're not doing a how's y'all's week thing this time?
No, we're not doing that.
Fuck it. If you want to know about our week,
tune in next week.
Yeah. I will talk about this week next week. Trust me.
Yeah, I think we've all had a week. But very different kinds of weeks. Anyway, yeah, so let's just jump right the hell in. So actually, I'm going to give some context. So this movie is very interesting. It was, if you were to explain what the point of this movie is, you could call it Sakaguchi's folly. They were high off of Final Fantasies 8 and 9, 7, 8, and 9, and 10. 7's a little bit different because it was separate. Final Fantasies 8 and 9 and 10 and about 1 billion other video games were all made in a relatively short amount of time that was very overlapping. Basically, Final Fantasy X made $1 zillion. Square went bonkers and made for 5 straight years just a string of some of the most audacious games that have ever been made on a large mainstream budget. Not just the Final Fantasy series went off in wildly strange directions, but they also made shit like Parasite Eve and Goddamn Vagrant Story and The Bouncer and Einhander and Tobal Number 1, and they just went off, basically. I consider this almost like Square's golden age, where not every game they made was great, but every game they made was just, they did not care how weird something was. They were going to be as creative as possible. So, and most of those games were huge critical successes, so they were riding high. So they decided, Sakaguchi was like, you know what I want to do even more than any of that? You know what's the weirdest kind of video game? A movie. So when you put that in context, it's like, what a bizarre artistic thing to do. To be like, let's rocket our Final Fantasy series from let's just ping pong back and forth from fantasy to sci-fi to action to ATB system, to not ATB system, to super fun, chill, nice, hang out with your friends game, to bizarre David Lynch bullshit, and then Final Fantasy X is somehow both. And now let's rock it into like sci-fi B movie, basically. What if we made a sci-fi B movie, but also it had at the time unequivocally the most groundbreaking CG you've ever seen.
Yeah. One thing that I think's great about this being a sci-fi B movie and to talk about their golden age is Final Fantasy VII was kind of modernish. You drove a motorcycle. It was pretty modern. Final Fantasy VIII, there were cars everywhere. It felt like modern day. So for both 9 and 10, they were made by different teams internally. They both were like, no, we need to ground this in fantasy because sci-fi is already old hat. We don't want to do sci-fi. We gotta focus on what's important about Final Fantasy and make it a fantasy game. And then Sakaguchi was like, I agree. Here's a sci-fi B movie. I'm going to call Final Fantasy The Spirits Within.
Yeah, it's a strange game. I feel like a lot of it's a strange movie. I feel like a lot of its aesthetic decisions may have been made for marketing reasons. I think they legitimately thought Western movie-going audiences don't want to see Tetsuya Nomura character designs and outlandish, like fun, bright colors. No, Western movie audiences like drab military outfits. Which, like, to be fair, I don't know if that's a wrong assessment.
Yeah,
of the Western science fiction, of the Western science fiction fandom.
And like at the time, The Matrix was out, but Lord of the Rings was not. And this movie definitely is looking at The Matrix for its inspiration and not looking at Lord of the Rings for its inspiration. Yeah, Lord of the Rings had
come out and showed everyone that you could actually make money off of fantasy bullshit. Totally. So anyway, so they made this movie, and it cost a fuck ton of money to make, not just because of the crazy animation, but also they got a lot of big name talent for it, and it outrageously flopped. Square lost basically all of their money, and the story that is told, that a lot of the time you get apocryphal stories in video game world, but as far as I can tell, this is actually true, is that them losing so much money on this game was pretty much why they were in a financial crisis and had to merge with Enix to form Square Enix that we see today. So that's why this game is outrageously important. Also, Sakaguchi left not long after to form his own company, Mistwalker, and so Nobuo Uematsu also left to form whatever his independent music production studio is. Smile Please, I believe it's called. And ever since then, honestly, after that point, the Final Fantasy series, or the Square side of Square Enix, they made one or two more audaciously ambitious and artistic and interesting video games, but for the most part, after that point, they became a very conservative company. And they stopped making crazy bullshit.
And these days they bought most of the IP that they have, so it's like, oh, Deus Ex is really good, and it belongs to Square technically, and Tomb Raider's really good, and it belongs to Square technically.
Oh, I think they're back to being great. I think their Dark Ages lasted maybe 10 years, maybe 8 years. I think they're out of it for sure. I think they're out of it. They're back to being weird.
They've started doing weird stuff again, but it's still just like they didn't get rid of the fact that they own Deus Ex and Tomb Raider. So it's just like these days, being a Square game doesn't mean what it meant in 1999. But if you have developed by Square Enix and there's nobody else's name on it, then it's probably good and weird again.
Here's the thing: they used to be a relatively small studio. I mean, relatively. Of course, they were a large company with lots of money, but like they still operated like a studio. They had an artistic vibe. They had an artistic essence to Square. But ever since merger with Enix, and I don't blame Enix for this, for the record, they now operate like a corporation.
Yeah,
and that's different. You know, there's a difference between a group of artists who want to make art, and also they sell it for money. There's a difference between that and a large corporation that plans out their releases and is like 2020 untitled Star Wars movie, 2021 Avatar 2, 2023 untitled Star Wars movie, 2024 Avatar 3. You know, there's a difference. That's why this movie's important. So let's jump into it. Y'all both apparently have a hard time remembering it because it was kind of boring, and I'll admit it is boring. What's the main character's name?
I remember
Aki.
It's Aki Ross, because
I didn't know her last name, but I knew her first name was Aki.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought it was so weird that they like Americaned her up for her last name, but then left her name as Aki, and it's just like Aki Ross doesn't like flow off the tongue. So
and she's played by Ming Na, who is Mulan. I immediately recognized her voice.
Mulan lady.
There are a ton of big names in this movie.
Oh, it's huge.
My hot take is that, so I sent Bernard, my best friend Bernard, I sent him, I don't know why I'm acting like people are listening to this episode for the first time. Y'all know who Bernard is. Well, because we just finished recording our intro episode, so in the intro episode I would have to explain who Bernard is, right? So I messaged Bernard pretty early in the movie, and I was like, yo, this movie's good. And the reason I said that the movie was good was because I was biased, because there had just been a long string of scenes with Donald Sutherland in them. And A, Donald Sutherland, one of my favorite actors. B, he's a great actor, and legitimately every scene that he's in has a lot of gravitas and weight and is charming and fun, and he plays Sid, and honestly, he's one of my favorite Sids in the series.
He's a pretty
he
good
does
Sid.
a great job. All the actors did fantastically.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem with the movie is I didn't mind the plot, I didn't mind the acting, I didn't mind the CG or the action. I minded the pacing, and in a related way, the music of it. Like, nothing was like moving the thing forward. So even while they were doing things that were moving the plot forward, it didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And that, for me, is where the boredom set in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was really just editing and sound design. I think a lot of it was just technical stuff. Like, I think you could almost like do a redo of this movie where you take like the same shit, like you take the same files and just modify it in a lot of ways and also make it 20 minutes shorter, and you'd like have a lot better, like maybe even a really good movie. My hot take is that it has the feel of a dumb sci-fi B movie, but actually I think the plot and the writing is kind of really good. I think it's more that the action scenes are boring. I joked, I said, wow, an action movie where the action scenes are the bad part? This movie really was ahead of its time. Because there was like 10 years of that shit in Hollywood. Like the whole aughts was just like action movies where if you're lucky it has a good plot, but the action parts are actually bad. Anyway, so what's this movie about? So this movie is about Aki Ross. It's about a future, the distant future, the year 2000, in which an alien invasion has almost destroyed the entire Earth. The Earth is just this horrible wasteland, and everyone who still exists lives in these things called barrier cities, which I actually really love how they look. It's these giant, bulbous... it's like a dome city, right? But the dome is energy, and what I like is that they're not perfect domes. They're like weird blobs. So they live in these weird blob cities that are covered in an energy layer, like force field, carapace, and that's where they live. And they live there because that's how they keep themselves safe from these aliens. The aliens are called phantoms, and they're actually like translucent, sometimes even invisible, glowy red, ghost-looking things, and they attack you by literally swiping your soul out of your body, which I think is a really fucked up concept. Like, they'll literally attack someone, and their blue soul, which is shaped like their body, just goes whoosh, and just flies off, and then the body just
collapses. Speaking of how this movie has a Sid in it, so therefore it's Final Fantasy. That's the only thing it has going for it. And since the Phantoms all look different and they all look weird, I was really expecting them to put some classic Final Fantasy,
right? Like, what if one of those Phantoms is a Moogle or something?
Yeah, like I like maybe they wouldn't go Moogle, but like if one was a bomb, one was a marble, that one, Marlboro. My speech impediment came back in full force and would not let me fucking say that.
I think that this is the time, like, before, like, MCU, before Tumblr really even, before fandom as it's currently known. I think that Square, like, just didn't know what fan service was.
Yeah, but like,
because frankly, they don't
in the games they do that. Like, that's the main thing that keeps them keeps it a Final Fantasy game. So it's just like like, not necessarily in a modern sense of fandom, but like in the sense of Final Fantasy, the reason we count Bravely Default is it has all of these things in it from Final Fantasy. So
it's I think that, like, even if they hadn't thought to do it artistically, if they made this movie today, they would have at least realized that they had to do it because of pandering, right?
Yeah.
But I guess they hadn't thought about pandering. Even, like, okay, late in the movie, or a big part of the movie is this space station. It's this giant laser space station. They decided to name it after a mythological figure. They called it Zeus. They could have called it Bahamut.
Yeah. Like Ultima.
Like,
they could have done all these different things to make it Final Fantasy.
Like, that would have been stupid pandering. Like, it's like, wait, you're not actually putting anything Final Fantasy in there. You're just literally naming a space station after a summon. But still, that would have been obvious. And they didn't. They're like they named it after a mythological figure, but not one of the mythological figures that the Final Fantasy series always names shit after.
Yeah, and then on top of it, Sid's name in the localization, they spelled it with an S, not a C.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah, because I had the subtitles up, and so
there's some other
it was
games
always
that do that, but yeah, still.
It was just...
So, I mean, back to the actual plot. So, what's going on is they don't know how to kill these things. They've been losing this fight with the aliens for, I think, like 30 straight years. And Dr. Aki Ross is a scientist with... she and her colleague / mentor, Dr. Sid, are on a mission because they have figured out what they think is the secret to defeating the aliens. And it's because this is actually a Japanese role-playing game, they have to go and collect 8 MacGuffins. This is where we get to my actual favorite thing about this movie, which is a conceptual thing, not anything about the actual movie. I love that they took the stupid video game cliche plot of person has to go collect 8 MacGuffins. But they realized that only works in a video game where you have to pad the game out with repetitive bullshit. It's actually bad writing, even in video games. No one wants to watch a movie where they do the same thing 8 times. So the movie literally begins with her getting the 6th one.
Yeah.
She's literally like, I already went on the JRPG quest to get 6 things. Now I just have to get the last 2 of them. Which I think is I just think that's really funny, just from a meta standpoint. Yeah, and then she has to get what's called spirits. So she's like, these aliens are made of like energy, and us studying the energy is what has caused us to be able to make things like weapons that can actually hurt them, or the shield cities that protect us were made from our research into this energy signature. My idea, she says, is that if we can get compatible spirits from around the world and combine them in some way, we can make a spiritual energy that is the exact polar opposite, and the 2 waveforms will cancel each other out, and it'll just completely wipe them all out. So we have to complete this. But the issue is that she also has some unorthodox beliefs. She and Dr. Sid believe that the Earth itself has a mother spirit called Gaia. This is clearly Sakaguchi still working out the same ideas that he was working out in Final Fantasy VII with the life stream. Right? So it's a live stream. So they believe, like, the Earth literally has a spirit, and the Earth's spirit, and when you die, or when a creature, or when a living being is born, it gets a piece of that Earth spirit, and it accumulates knowledge and wisdom over the course of its travels, and then when it dies, it returns to the Earth spirit. That's Gnosticism. Aka Xenogears. Small 2 of pieces. But because that sounds like a bunch of spiritual gobbledygook, a lot of the other people, a lot of the Battlestar Galacticas in the fucking war chamber laugh at them and think that they're silly and think that they should just use a giant cannon to shoot the fuck out of the aliens, and they think, no, you can't do that, because if you shoot the fuck out of the aliens, you'll also literally be shooting the Earth and killing the Earth. So, what are some of the subplots in this movie? Steve Buscemi's in it.
Yes.
Yeah. When we met Steve Buscemi's character, I said, "Is this a sequel to Polar Express?" And he plays the little douchebag from the train.
He's being outrageously Steve Buscemi. It's like if they were like, "Hey, Steve Buscemi, what if you like didn't dial it down at all?"
One thing I also love about this movie is, speaking of voice actors real quick, is the main young, hot, attractive male counterpart is Alec fucking Baldwin. And it's so fucking weird that he's playing the young, hot guy.
I think James Woods was a good choice for the villain.
Yeah,
he definitely sure is the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally the second he shows up, he's like, first of all, he's got Vegeta hair, like slick black, little bit of a widow's peak, like villain hair. He has a scowl on his face constantly. He talks like this. Are we to believe that there is some Earth spirit? And he wears like a black leather suit. So literally.
What do you mean he's obviously a villain? No.
It's really funny how obviously the villain he is. And he really hams it up. He does a good job, honestly. It's actually honestly some of the best acting I may have ever seen in a CG movie. It's weird how good it is. Yeah. I don't know how they got such good performances, especially considering the rest of the movie isn't that good. Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but yeah, there's a bunch of repetitive scenes where how did you feel about Alec Baldwin's character?
I thought he was okay. I thought it was unearned when he was like, but you gotta believe that I believe in Gaia now, or whatever, there towards the end. And
when he first showed up, I was like, oh my god, this is the most boring, generic, wet blanket, like, military brunette white guy I've ever seen in my life. But then it turns out he's a well-written character, and is a good guy, and is cool. He's a lot better than he appears at first scene. One thing I like is they have to cheat. They don't have to show him and Aki, like, falling in love and having chemistry, because it's implied that they already are super into each other.
They've already had their character growth. Like,
they
Lulu
clearly already had a pretty serious relationship prior to the movie's start, and then it just got interrupted by circumstance. So when he comes on to her in a scene early in the movie, in a romantic moment, it actually doesn't come out of nowhere. You're just like, oh, this is an okay thing to do, because with someone that you like, that clearly likes you and you like them, and that's already known. You know? It's not just like a creepy, like, oh, he's trying to get the girl.
Yeah.
So yeah, they go on some action scenes. They have to go above the law to get the spirits. Eventually, James Woods decides that he's going to do a military coup, because the government won't let him shoot the big gun. But then he fucks up, and he almost kills himself, but then decides to not kill himself, and instead to shoot the big gun. And the big gun makes things worse. And
a lot worse.
It almost kills Gaia, which turns out is real and exists. And then at the end, Alec Baldwin sacrifices himself in order to deliver the 8-spirit completed waveform to the aliens, and they all disappear, and that's the end of the movie. You also find out, in what I think is actually a really cool twist, that the alien invaders aren't alien invaders at all.
They're just ghosts.
The big twist is that what happened to these aliens is that they had some kind of big war on their planet. They're very generic-looking aliens. You'd think that the creators of Final Fantasy would have come up with phenomenally fantastic-looking aliens and super interesting and imaginative, but they just look like zealots from StarCraft. But worse. Because they don't even have cool colors in yellow and blue. So they fought way too much, and blew up their own fucking planet. They killed their own Gaia spirit. But when their planet blew up, a big chunk of the planet flew off, and on that chunk of the planet was a huge chunk of the Gaia spirit, and just a bunch of random animals. So that's what all these things are. First of all, these things are ghosts. That's why they're spirits. They're literally ghosts. And they're ghosts of just all the random creatures that happened to be on that meteor. So that's why they're just, like, randomly attacking people. They're just, like, it's like a ghost giraffe and a ghost elephant and a ghost giant carapace arachnid thingy with a zillion tentacles. I think that thing's amazing looking. And they're just, like, fucked up and don't know what's going on. So you get a lot of sympathy for their plight.
Yeah.
But they still kind of have to kill the fuck out of Alden at the end, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah. It's, like, implied that they'll be, like, letting the alien Gaia spirit rest, and it's a good put them out of their misery, and not a fuck you for being on my planet, you alien scumbags. But they still kill all of them.
I think it would have been cool if they'd implied that, like, oh, the Earth Gaia spirit absorbed the other Gaia spirit, and they all became one Gaia and were able to, but it looks like they just sort of dissipate into nothing. So, you know.
But that's okay. Everybody died.
Yeah.
So what about some memorable moments? Was there any part that stuck out to you?
Not
as something
really.
good. What about you,
Eli? I mean, it was a serviceable movie. It just didn't really. I didn't really feel any strong connection to it at all. I'm not as into sci-fi as I am to fantasy. So That was a big part of it.
Favorite thing that you had said in the Discord, where you were like, "This feels like a shitty B movie that they slapped the name Final Fantasy on to make it sell." But ironically, it's backwards. It's a Final Fantasy movie that they slapped a shitty B movie plot on to try and make it sell.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I think they legitimately thought that more Final Fantasy type shit like wouldn't sell. Which honestly, they may have been right, but this also didn't sell. So
yeah. So we'll never know.
Oh, that's my hot take. I think this movie didn't succeed. Well, this isn't actually a hot take now that I think about it. Because does any movie really succeed or fail based on whether it's good?
Not really.
No.
I think being good can be a reason you succeed.
Oh no, go on.
What? Okay, I think that a movie being good can be a reason why it succeeds, but I do not think that all good movies succeed. Like we were talking about Wild Arms 5 on the intro episode. It was great. Nobody bought it. That's why it's really expensive now, because it's great and no one wants to sell their great copy that nobody else bought.
Well, it's just this movie. I'm not saying this movie's great, or even super good, but I'm saying that that's not why it was a flop. I think it's a flop because I think it was a fundamental miscalculation. It had no audience. At the time, the idea that a CG animated movie could be not for children was a foreign concept. Even today, it's largely a foreign concept. Or people know that it's possible to do it, but still no one's really doing it.
It's like we got Avatar, and that was still only half and half, and that was the so Avatar and Spirits Within kind of are singular in there, and Beowulf, I guess, would be the three.
That movie owns.
It'd be the three that have tried to do this, and that's it.
So first of all, the movie's called Final Fantasy. Most moviegoers probably have heard of Final Fantasy and know it's a video game, so they don't want to see it. Because they don't want to see what they consider to be a video game movie. They probably figure, well, I haven't played any of the games, so I wouldn't get it. Of course, they're wrong about that, but still, that's the point of view of your average moviegoer, right? I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, so I shouldn't see this movie. Final Fantasy fans, meanwhile, are like, oh, is this a sequel to Final Fantasy 7 or 10 or 8 or even 9
or
Mystic
even
Quest?
Its own thing that looks like it?
And then they're like,
and then the trailer comes out, and they're like, no, it's not.
It's not
Final Fantasy fans. So non-gamers aren't going to watch it. Final Fantasy fans aren't going to watch it. Fans of animation aren't going to watch it because it's not for children. Fans of cheesy science fiction movies aren't going to see it because it's CG, so they think it's for children. The movie had no audience. It's a damn shame. It had zero audience. Even if it was a great movie, it would not have succeeded at all. There's a lot of worse, it's not that great, but you know what else isn't that great? Lots of movies. So I guess that's my thing, is movies unfairly demonized. Look, I'm sorry, but when Transformers 3, which is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, can make $10 bazillion, there's lots of bad movies out there. This is a mediocre movie. But it's still a shame what happened to it. It's a shame that it completely threw so many people and companies and artistic careers completely off their trajectory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in a series of movie nights where I watched of Warriors of Virtue, this movie deserves an Oscar. It's not even close to a bad movie. And Warriors of Virtue had a toy line that sold a lot and had it had more than one wave, so it's at least selling enough to have reprints of toys. So it did okay for a late 90s kung fu movie. And Final Fantasy Spirits Within is forgotten about on purpose by a lot of people.
Exactly. I think it's a weird novelty, and I'm a fan of weird novelties, and I think that all the weirdos like me who like weird, not great movies that no one's ever heard of, just because we find them to be interesting and curious, should watch this movie.
Yeah.
Memorable moments, just a couple. Even though I don't like the drab look, and it's annoying that it's all dark, serious Battlestar Galactica looking sci-fi instead of having a lot of visual flair. It does have some great designs. I like the design of a lot of the characters' armor, a lot of the vehicles, the part where they drive a warthog from Halo. The design of the Zeus battle station is cool as hell. It looks amazing. Yeah. It even looks like a Final Fantasy summon. That's the thing. The design of Zeus, which is again an orbital weapon, it looks like if you were making if you were making a sci-fi Final Fantasy and you had Bahamut in it and you decided to make Bahamut a robot, this is what it would look like.
Yeah. And then you called it Zeus.
Yeah, it looks cool as hell. There's also an amazing shot at one point where Aki and Gray are in a space station and they're smooching. First of all, the smooching is very good. It's good smooching.
Yeah. I remember everyone saying that the smooching was bad in this, but I didn't think the smooching was bad
really
at all
good.
in this.
They even, like, at one point they do the thing where, like, they're smooching and, like, one of them, like, sucks on the other person's lip a little bit so their lip, like, catches for a second. Like what happens when you're smooching, right?
Yeah.
Sucks on is a gross way to explain that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're smooching, and the camera pans away. There's a lot of good camera movement in this movie too. Then there's an external shot of the spaceship that they're currently in, flying through space, and then that spaceship literally morphs into a bullet, and the background fades away. And instead of looking at the Earth, in a spaceship, we're now inside of a room, and the bullet is floating through space, and then a bunch of other bullets appear, and it's because it's a scene transition. So now we're in a new scene where the bad guy is he's doing something with his gun. He's releasing a bunch. He's idly frustrated and is also about to maybe kill himself. So he's releasing a bunch of bullets from the chamber of his gun, and they're floating because they're in zero gravity. And then the camera pans and then like circles around, and then you get a close up of his face, and then he has a dramatic scene. It's a great transition. It fucking rules. It's a great shot. It's literally the two heroes being in a ship transitioning to a bullet, which is not only a cool visual thing, it also is symbolic because the heroes have love and the villain has a big gun, right?
Yeah.
If the whole movie had been weird, bizarre, like again, channeled that Final Fantasy VIII a little more, channeled that weird Lynchy shit, channeled that weird impressionism, it could have, like, a whole movie of that would have been sick as hell. So
yeah. My memorable moment is a cliche, and they did it like color by numbers cliche, and it shouldn't be my memorable moment, but I remember loving it so freaking much. So they're all getting away on their warthog, and they have to make a daring escape of something, and then they crash. But everyone's like, "All right, did we get it? Is everyone okay?" And one of the guys is not okay. The big muscle guy is not okay. And they're like, "Don't worry, we'll get you to a hospital." And he's like, "No, like I can't make it to the hospital. Just give me my gun." And so they give him a gun to like fight off, so that he dies screaming and like fighting out. And it's like bad because like you could put that in Saving Private Ryan or any other movie where you've seen that happen.
Ever. Yeah.
But I fucking loved it. Like, it happened. I was like, is he going to ask for his gun? He asked for his gun. Oh my god, he asked for his gun.
This movie's got some actual good one-liners. They're all a little low-key. Nothing's like make you like laugh out loud, but there's some good ones. Like in this scene, again, he's like impaled on something, right?
Yeah.
So one of the characters is like, one of the characters goes, "Talk to me, Sarge," and he goes, "Ouch."
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Like that's a good line,
Yeah.
There's quite a few good lines actually. That's the only one that I wrote down. But there's some nice little zingers. I like how the villain dies because he literally shoots the cannon, and then the cannon's like, "We're overheating. If you shoot the cannon again, you'll blow up." And he's like, "I don't care." So he shoots the cannon again, and then he blows up.
That's good.
That's how he dies. He wasn't even like an accident. He's like, "No, I'm going to keep shooting the cannon because I'm desperate to kill the aliens, and I'm going to keep doing it till I blow up."
It's one of those "my fate is my own" moments.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a movie where every single thing in it is like kind of good, except that it's just boring.
Yeah.
It's just a boring movie.
This makes you want to Google
hour
and
40,
see.
It could have been hour 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me want to Google and see if anybody has done a fan edit or something, or like just a reorchestration or something. Because like normally on this podcast, we talk about the music a lot. I couldn't tell you like even what genre of music they tried to use for the soundtrack of this movie. I couldn't tell you at all.
Disagree. I think it's a great score. However, it doesn't necessarily fit. It's not very exciting. It's not very exciting music. I think it's actually good. I think it's actually good ass music. It's got a lot of great parts to it, but not parts that help the pacing and intensity of the film.
Yeah, and it does the thing that anime does a lot, where I love anime, and I just watched a bunch of the Digimon movies that just came out, where they tried to stick to the anime and not to the Fox Kids. And anime loves to build a rich ambient soundscape, and then have the characters talk, and that's it. And even if it's an emotional bit, it doesn't matter. Music is there for action scenes and transitions. And this movie kind of, not all the way, but it kind of fell into that vibe a lot. Where it's just no, they're kissing, bring up the pop song. This should be happening, and it just doesn't.
Especially because their kissing scene was identical to the kissing scene from Final Fantasy VIII, where they did play a pop song.
Yeah. And there just was a lot.
Maybe that's why I like the music, because I already know what happens in this movie. I've seen it twice. So I was able to focus more on I'm going to tune out during the talking here and focus on the ambient soundscape, which is actually very nice.
Yeah.
Because I already know what happens, so I don't need to listen to the characters talking.
Yeah, but the music just didn't fit. It didn't help it. So if there's a reorchestration where they put in some other music or something, it probably is enough to make the movie good. It's that close.
Did the two of you watch the entire credits?
No.
I had it up, but I wasn't paying attention.
Honestly, y'all should go, since it's free on Prime anyway, y'all should go check it out, because the credits, first of all, it's a really nice pop song over the credits. But after it ends, it's oh, this movie came out in 2002. There's the most early aughts new metal song you've ever heard. It's really bad, and it's did they have to put this in for legal reasons because it's the early aughts and you're legally obligated to put in a shitty new metal song?
Probably.
But it made me smile because of nostalgia and it being bad, so y'all should check it out.
Awesome. But yeah, this movie, would I recommend it to people? Probably not. Do I think that it could be good with literally just a new music track to get us over the boring parts? Probably. It probably would, on a ABC scale, which I don't usually like. This is probably a D+. A new score to get us through the boring parts would probably make it a B-, straight up. It's pretty much that close to being good. It just gets boring because of small technical things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. And I wish that other people had really taken the baton and run with it, but nobody did, probably because it was a flop.
Yeah, it would be really cool. Though technically there have been 3 other movies of this ilk from Square Pictures, but they were all tie-ins. I believe
There's
3.
Advent Children.
There was a new one for 15.
Oh, right. That one's good.
Yeah. And then I think there was another one.
I've actually seen Advent Children. I've never played Final Fantasy VII, but I saw Advent Children.
That doesn't matter. You don't have to play Final Fantasy VII. Advent Children's plot is stupid and makes no sense, and it's got an amazing score and amazing fight scenes.
That's pretty much all I remember of it. Good music, good fight scenes. Everything else was just not great.
The plot's dumb if you haven't played FF7. It's possibly even more dumb if you have. But I love that movie. It's one of Uematsu's best soundtracks.
Let's see.
Is there? Yeah. Are you looking up what the other one that they did was?
Yeah.
Kingsglaive is automatically good because just like this movie, having Donald Sutherland, Kingsglaive has Aaron Paul. So that means it's good.
I Googled and I think I'm wrong, actually. I think it's just the 2. 2 more. I think it's 3 total is where I was messed up. But yeah, so that'll do it for today's bonus episode. If you like hearing us talk about movies and you like for us to talk about video games, check out our normal episodes in the feed. This episode coincided with, as we said, Final Fantasy X, which owned. If you want to support us, we have a Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/rpgbookclub, and you can always reach out on Twitter at rpgbookclub, email at rpgbookclub@gmail.com, or on our Discord, which has a link in the description. The next game we're going to be playing is Dragon Quest V, Hand of the Heavenly Bride. Not Blide.
Neither of us can
Hand of
talk
the Heavenly
today.
Bride. So for the next movie night, we're going to be watching. I put the 13 English episodes, but that's a lot to watch. So probably not the full 13, but some of the English episodes of the OG Dragon Quest anime from the early 90s. And sometime in the next 10 weeks or so, you should see the next the next one pop up, and that'll be cool. But yeah, for that, I've been Sam Allman.
I've been Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm Maddie.
Toodaloo.
Bye.
Bye, nerds.
Love you.